In this video, let's take a closer look at a step-by-step approach to photographing small birds. First, I want to thank you for watching my previous videos and leaving comments. Comments are a realistic guideline for me to know what you found useful and what are the things that I need to clarify in future videos. I hope you leave your comments for me at the end of this video, and do leave your Instagram links or any links where I can see photographs of birds that you click. Photographing pictures of small birds is the biggest challenge in photography because these birds are never perched on one place for too long. They are constantly bobbing around looking for food and other things. And so every time I get a sharp picture of a small bird, it's always extremely satisfying. Now, I believe that one has to have complete mastery over one's camera to consistently click sharp pictures of small birds. Let's reverse engineer this for a bit, okay? So, if you're clicking a picture of a small bird, what's the ideal end result that you'd like? Of course, you hope that the bird is sharp. You want that picture to be able to communicate something about the bird or its habitat. You want people to appreciate it for these things. However, if you let your camera do the settings, if you let your camera take over and click as per its whims and fancies, it's highly unlikely that you will get a super sharp picture because the camera has no idea what bird or what you're clicking. It has no idea what the shutter speed should be. What's the ideal aperture for that image? No matter which automatic or semi-automatic mode you use, your camera will fail you. So for that reason, it is imperative that you learn how to use your camera in the manual mode. Is there any such thing as basic, intermediate, and advanced photography? I don't really think so. Because once you learn how to use your camera in the manual mode, you can go about clicking your camera, setting your camera for any subject and lighting situation. There are certain things that you need to learn more when you branch out into a specific field. For example, if you're doing studio portraiture, you need to learn more about the lighting. Same goes for product photography. The same goes with wildlife photography. You need to understand your subject and which shutter speeds work better for different situations and things like that. But the way you set your camera always stays the same. And the best part is that it's pretty easy to understand how to learn how to use your camera in the manual mode. I have a separate video in the description that talks more about the different camera modes. One of the major challenges when clicking small birds, especially with a long lens, is to get the bird in the frame. What do I mean by that? I might see the bird and then I point the camera and it's not in my field of view. And I move it here and I move it there and it's completely off. I just don't get it. This can take some time and practice. What I do is I make sure I have the bird looking through with one eye. I make sure I have the bird just above my lens hood and then I adjust the camera so that it comes in the field of view. But it can be very disconcerting at first. It takes a bit of practice. You don't want anything sticking out of your subject's head, and you also want to ensure that the edges of the image are clean because having unfavorable light at the edges of your picture can take all the attention away from your subject. If you do see twigs and things sticking out of your subject's head or any other place where they shouldn't be, you physically moving by an inch or 2 inches to the side or to the front or to the back can make all the difference. Supposing you set out to click pictures of small birds or any bird for that matter, don't you want the eye of the bird to be super sharp? Of course you do, don't you? But if you let the camera decide where it should focus, it's highly improbable, highly unlikely that your camera will set focus on the eye of the bird. It might set its focus on the branch or on the body of the bird or on some other element in that frame, except your eye will be out of focus. And when you look at pictures where the eye of any living creature is out of focus, that picture is pretty much unusable because the person seeing that picture is not able to establish a connection with that subject. So, for that reason, look for a setting called autofocus area. No matter which camera you have, look in the manual, or you can do a quick search for the if you don't have the physical manual, you can quickly search for a PDF online and look for autofocus area and try and figure out how to change that to single point, and then maneuver that point around and overlap it with the eye of the bird. So every time you click a picture, you need to adjust the focus point as per the composition so that that single focus point is over the eye of the bird. There are other ways that you can attempt to do this. You can use a bigger cluster of focus points or group focusing, but if you don't use a single point and take it exactly where you want, you're not going to get consistently sharp pictures, not going to get consistently sharp eyes. Remember that. So it's always a bit of a trade-off. Now look for a setting called autofocus mode. You will have options such as single and continuous. On Canon cameras, these read as one shot for single and AI servo for continuous. If I keep it on single and I half click the shutter release button, the camera and the lens will focus on that one single focus point, whatever is overlapping with it, establish focus, and then stop focusing because focus has been established. But if I'm photographing a bird which is constantly bouncing around, coming closer to me, then going further behind and coming further to me, once I if I'm on single point and the camera focuses and then the bird moves, my bird will be out of focus. So whenever I'm photographing living creatures that are constantly moving further away or closer, I keep my focusing mode to continuous. So now as long as I keep my shutter release button half pressed, the camera continues to update focus. Most of the time, in fact, almost always, when photographing birds and wildlife, I set my aperture to the widest possible aperture on my lens. That could be f4 or f5.6. When I set it to the widest aperture, the lens lets in as much light as it can onto the sensor, and as a result, two things happen as a result. One, I get the opportunity to photograph at a faster shutter speed, which is very helpful because the faster the shutter speed, the less chance of a camera shake and the better chance of getting sharp pictures. And secondly, the out of focus area of that picture goes significantly out of focus. If a bird is just perched on a twig, you can get sharp pictures even at slower shutter speeds like 1/200th of a second or even 1/100th of a second. But the moment that bird takes off, you're not going to get any sharpness on that bird. It's often a trade-off whether to set a high ISO to get a fast shutter speed so that you can click sharp pictures of them in action, or to get that classic portrait, beautiful light, low ISO, clean image. It's sometimes it can be quite frustrating because there might be times when you decide that okay, I'm going to set a higher ISO and get that fast shutter speed and do these action pictures, but then the bird just perches there, gives you the most gorgeous sighting, and your ISO is slightly higher than it should be for a classic portrait like that. Now let's talk about ISO. I try my best to keep my ISO under 400. In low light, early morning, very early in the morning, late in the evening, it's not always possible to get a decent shutter speed at lower ISOs, but I try and see what I can do. So my aperture value and ISO are predetermined by me. Widest aperture, low ISO. And then I use the exposure scale of the camera to determine the shutter speed. So I use the command dial to change the shutter speed. I can spot meter a mid-tone and balance the scale over there and then click. Your histogram is your best friend on the field to help you set correct exposures. We need to be very careful that we don't blow our highlights. Highlights are the brightest area in any picture. And when we are clicking birds and wildlife, even if a small section of the body is blown out, it becomes very difficult to color correct the overall image. So I must ensure that the midtones are in place and that the highlights do not get blown out. When photographing living creatures, it's always a good idea to photograph them at eye level. And one of the worst views is pointing your camera down at them. That gets you a lot of distortion. And even when there's a bird on a branch and you are close to it and you're pointing your camera upwards, you get more of the underside of the bird. And again, those pictures don't really, they're not as good as the ones that you look directly at the bird from eye level. So that means very often bending down or sitting on the ground, whatever. Sometimes lying flat on the ground, do what you have to do, but click that bird at eye level. Another very important but invisible camera setting is focus tracking. Focus tracking determines for how long you want focus locked on your subject. So if another bird or a twig comes in the way of your primary subject, it does not shift focus as quickly, and consequently your as the intruder goes away, your focus is still on your main subject. I have a couple of videos in the description that show you how to do this on Canon and Nikon cameras. You can make your life a lot easier if you learn a little bit about the behavior of different birds. So, for example, if you're photographing certain passerines or songbirds, such as bush chats, wagtails, preenias, they very often come back and perch on the same twig or branch. So even if they fly away, do a little jig, they often come back to the same perch. So if you're able to sit there patiently and wait for them to keep coming back, you're going to get good pictures. Find spaces where you have a lot of small birds coming in. They could even be man made habitats such as fields, sugarcane fields, mustard fields, and observe their behavior, spend some time. Photography, to a large extent, is a solo sport. If you're in a group of two or three or four people, the chances of the bird trusting you and coming and perching closer to you diminish as compared to if you're alone, slow, watchful, patient. It's important for you to understand what is and isn't a photo opportunity. If you have birds just coming, flying around, coming, perching on a twig, going away, then going somewhere else, coming back, these aren't really photo opportunities. You can point and spray around and you might end up with something, but when you're clicking any picture, I want you to think about a wall size print and not just that little image that you post on social media. Think about the print, because to get a good print, you need good exposure, accurate focusing, sharpness. So the method of just spraying your camera around and hoping for the best does not always work. Instead, try and understand the behavior of the bird. Try and figure out what it is up to and second guess what it's going to do next and go and wait over there. It's a game of patience. It can take a long time. I find that one of the best times to click pictures of small birds is while they are eating. Because when they are eating, they are so focused on the food that they don't mind you being in the area close by as long as you don't make any big movements. Sit quietly. Do not do anything to disturb them. They start to trust you, they start coming closer to you. Instead of you having to go closer to them, if you station yourself at one place while they are feeding, the chances are that sooner or later they're just going to inch closer and closer and closer to you. That's how I got these pictures. If you're photographing from a boat, a beanbag is a very useful tool. A monopod can also be a very useful tool, but then it depends because when clicking pictures of small birds, we have to photograph them at different heights. So we can't really afford to spend time changing the height of the monopod. And also, when we do things like that, it creates a distraction for the bird, and they're going to probably take off before you're all set. These days, I'm taking courses to become a facilitator of visual art therapy workshops. During the lockdown, I'd launched a 3-hour workshop called Develop Your Creative Eye Through Mobile Photography. In this workshop, participants became mindful of the things around them, the people around them, and the way light falls on these people, places, and learned how to photograph their lives in an aesthetic way. More recently, I've revived one of my childhood passions, that's drawing cartoons, and I draw a cartoon almost every day and post it on my Instagram page. The link to my Instagram page is in the description. So now you know more about how to go about clicking pictures of small birds and the camera settings that you need to research. If you'd like to learn more about bird and wildlife photography, you can learn from me from anywhere in the world over live one on one video calls. Please have a look at my website www.girishmenon.com to have a look at the courses and workshops that I offer.